All right. I'm tired, but we're going to do this. First off, I want to thank everybody for subscribing. I want to thank everybody for uh, making comments on all of these videos. I want to thank everybody for watching all the videos. I want to thank everybody for watching 30 seconds or more of all of the ads as well. That is very helpful to people on YouTube, such as myself. So here's another writing video. How I write real people into my books. So when you do this, you got to be careful, okay? There was a time 15 years ago where it's like almost every writer I knew was like, "You want to be in my book? Like if you've purchased one of my books, send me the receipt and I'll you get enter a contest." We all had contests to be in books. Okay. I did a Kickstarter 20 years ago when not a lot of writers at that point were doing Kickstarters at all. And one of the levels was to be a character in my book. Dying Days 3, my zombie book. And I did not put a cap on how many because I figured a couple people, I don't even know how much, $100, whatever it was. And I ended up with like 10 people at that level, which is awesome. But now I'm like, now I got to add 10 more people into this book as characters. And I did. And, if you paid in, then I basically asked you some questions. I emailed you. We talked a little bit. A couple people I already knew. And my friend Russ, who I grew up with, his nickname growing up was Madman. Not because anybody called him Madman, but because when we were in, I think biology class or something like that in high school, the teacher gave us papers and basically it's like, fill out your information on these, And one of the things was nickname. And Russ wrote Madman. I thought so that was hysterical. So then we called him Madman from that point on. She would also yell, "Mr. Meyer," because he would always like the first lab thing we did together is we like did something and we hit it and we were like, "Yes!" Like high five, and then she's like, "You two separated." He also, for the midterm exams, she handed out all the sheets. We had to fill out the little circles. Back in the day, we're old, and he just filled all of them A B C D A B C D. He did the whole thing, and as she handed out the booklets, he just went to his desk, turned it in, and left. I don't think he passed. Anyway, so he was one of the people that did it. Few other people also did it, and they were characters in my book. Now, Madman went pretty far in the series. There was a girl, Tasha Shorb, and she went all the way to book 9, all the way to the end. And she even got a Dying Days Origins book. And she was also, I believe, in Highway to Hell 2. So her character, I got to be very friendly with her online, and she gave me a lot of information. She was a huge Lizzie Borden fan. Not the lady who supposedly killed her parents, the band, Lizzie Borden. Also still a huge Lizzie Borden fan myself. So that was pretty cool. So we talked about music, we talked about stuff like that. And she became a character. In fact, her picture is on the Dying Days Origins book with one of the weapons that she owned at the time. So she became a character. Several other people became characters. When I wrote Chelsea Avenue, I used several people that I grew up with, that I went to school with. I went to junior high and I went to high school with, and they wanted to be in the book. And I made characters with their names in it. Okay. And again, they gave me permission. And it wasn't them, but it was somebody with their name or something close to their name, and that kind of thing. And I've written a bunch of books for Severed Press, and in there might be you might see a Frank or a Chuck, you know, uh, people that I grew up with, okay, people that I am friends with now, other authors. I like to slip in those little. They're not really Easter eggs. They're just really, let's just name some people, okay? In the Dying Days books, I remember when I wrote the first short story. It was like a flash fiction piece, and I went on Facebook. I said, "Hey, I need a female. I need a character, female, zombie apocalypse, and she's kind of average. She's not this superwoman. She works at a makeup counter in the mall in Maine, and she knows how to shoot a gun." And one of the people that I was friends with, that was one of my readers, Darlene Bobbich, said, "You could use my name." And I said, perfect name. So that created that character. And so I've gotten a lot of those over the years. A lot of people that end up being in my books that are people that I know. Most famously in interviews, they always say, about characters. And I always say, well, I've been divorced twice, and I've killed those two women 100 times in my books. I don't think I've ever named characters with their names. I don't, maybe I have, I don't know. And I probably killed them even worse than in other stories. I don't know. I don't remember. But I've named other people. Other people have been in the book. A lot of people that I've known over the years. I think it's fun. I've been named in books over the years. I've had other authors. Which ones escape me right now? If you're one of those authors, and say, "Hey, in my book, whatever, I used your name." I know years ago in a horror book, I don't remember the author now. I don't think they write anymore. I was a hitman, Armand Rosamilia, and I was a hitman in his horror book. I worked for the Genovese crime family. I remember that. I was in Don Rich, who's a fellow tropical author. He wrote one of his books where a bunch of authors were on a cruise, and I believe I was killed in the bathroom, which I could see that. That makes sense. So for me, it's just fun. If you want to be in a book, I'll put you in a book. Usually I want to know a couple things about you if I don't know who you are. Every now and then I would pop in and, when I'm a YouTube live, I'll go, give me a name of a character. Give me a name of this or that. So in the Southern Gothic noir thriller that I'm writing now, as I'm recording this, the sheriff's name is Sheriff Harper Jordan. And I know that can't stay, because Jordan Harper is, sometimes you're just like, I'm just going to name the character and we'll change it in post, kind of thing. The problem is I like the character Harper Jordan, but I know you can't use that. And I know looking for an agent, looking for a publisher, they're going to immediately go, yeah, you can't use that. One of my favorite authors, got to meet him at BoucherCon, got to get an advanced copy of his Violent Masterpiece book. Looking forward to the next book. I mean, just phenomenal writer. So I know that's going to have to be changed. Sometimes I just, I'll come up I like a lot of times when I'm writing something, when I wrote like the movie stuff, those books, I did a previous video on that, and I needed to create a couple of Russian hitmen characters, Russian mobsters. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull up the NHL, pull up NHL rosters, figure out who's go by nationality, who's Russian, and pull some names. I'm also going to look at that, and I'm going to pull some wrestlers. So I'm taking names of actual people and I'm kind of, you know, Bruno Koloff kind of thing, you know, and I'm mixing and matching. But I use a lot of real people, and it also, as a writer, gives me a mental image in my head of what these people look like, and it helps me now. I don't normally go ahead and describe the character all that much because I want the people who are reading, I want the reader to take ownership and they know who Bruno Carl in their mind who Bruno Karloff is, for instance. I don't know if I've actually used that name. I'm just throwing that out there as an example. So for me, it's more of um, real people in my life, real people that I've met, good and bad. You know, there's a lot of people I've met, you know, 20 something years of retail management, a lot of bad customers, a lot of bad people I work with. Upper management is always a mess. And so a lot of those people, I've used their names. A lot of their people, maybe not their first and last name, but I've used their name. Okay. There was a guy I worked with when I worked at a anchor store at the mall when I first moved down to Florida, Ray Brewer. And I had a dream about him one night. He was in my dream, him and his wife, and he lived on a cliff. Okay, now I'm in Florida, so there's no cliffs, overlooking the ocean, and he built stairs down to the ocean in the dream. And then like this cosmic horror Cthulhu like creature came up these stairs that Ray built. The weirdest dream, but it was. I got up and I literally wrote the dream out. I was late for work that day. I literally wrote this story out and became Stairs to the Ocean, which is, I think, is in my first or second short story collection. And I went to work and I showed it to him. I said, "Can I use this?" And he was like, "Can I use your name?" He's like, "Yeah, that. Oh my God, that's awesome." He's like, "In fact, the woman, the name of the woman, my wife in that you use, that was the woman that I was with before I was with my wife." Okay. Well, in this world, in this bizarro world, you marry that woman instead, and then you summon basically a demon or whatever from the ocean. So I'll get a lot of that. I'll get people who will say, "Oh, put me in a story," but okay, I'm gonna kill you in the story, though. I mean, that's kind of what I'm writing. I'm writing horror or I'm writing crime thrillers. People don't normally have happy endings in the stuff that I write, and they understand that. They get it. So you know, for me, it's fun. Is it lazy? Yeah. Sometimes it's lazy. Sometimes it's like I just need a name. I just need a name. When I've written 12 books, co-written 12 books with Tom Duffy, and it's always funny because I'll come up with a name, and he'll say afterwards, he'll say, "Who was that? Was that a baseball player? Was that a wrestler? Who was?" Because I'm coming up with names, you know, in my Chelsea Avenue books. I mean, written years ago originally. Pavano was one of the cops. After the baseball player Carl Pavano, who played for the Red Sox. Then he played for the Yankees. We won't count that, but so I always remember that's a cool Pavano. That's a pretty cool last name. So a lot of times I'll do that. A lot of times I'll have baseball player names, and I'll mix and match first name and last name. And you know, you're always trying to look up if you know, I've written what 500 stories probably, and so that's a lot of different names and characters I have to come up with. So you're churning out like several thousand people. So I never want to use the same names over and over. And so a lot of times I will, like, we'll be watching a show, me and my wife, and I'll watch the credits and I'll try to remember, and I normally don't, a couple of names. People will come up with a couple of names. I'm watching Mystery of Blind Frog Ranch. If you watch that show, I've been watching that for some years. Well, in this new season, there's a guy that they call Chili. I'm like, you know what? I got to have a character named Chili. I mean, that just makes sense, right? Doesn't it make sense that you got to have a character his nickname is Chili? So it's one of those things. I'll probably be using at some point. At some point, you'll read a story of mine and you'll go, "Oh, Chili. Oh, I remember when he talked about this on that great video writing series that he did on YouTube that I watched and I subscribed to, and I watched at least 30 seconds of every ad that played during that because I just enjoy him and I want to see him make money. Right? Right. So now I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep coming up with names. I used to write names down. If I met somebody, I would write their name down. I don't really do that anymore. It's like having story ideas. There's a billion story ideas. If something sticks in my head, I'll remember it. If something is good, I'll remember it. I'll never forget reading an interview with Elmore Leonard, and he was at an awards ceremony or something, and they called a guy up to the stage, and when he came back down, Elmore Leonard stopped him and said, how do you spell your name? His name was Raylan. And the guy spelled it for me. He says, I love that name. I'm using that name. And of course, Raylan ended up in several of his books and then in the show Justified. That's where Elmore Leonard got Raylan from. And I just thought that was kind of neat, you know. Now, obviously, if you're writing fantasy, maybe some science fiction, you're not going to use normal people's name. Who wants to read a fantasy where, oh, King Bob? That's you're not going to do that. Although you're not going to also. I remember writing fantasy back in the day when I was a teenager, and it was like I can't even pronounce this. It was like, oh, King XIAOW apostrophe ZZ TLEW, like those kind of fantasy names that you can't even pronounce. Not interested. And I didn't know anybody with that name either, to be honest with you. I didn't know anybody with that name. There are certain people in stories that I've added their name in the stories. There's a girl I grew up with that I didn't like when I was a kid. She was a jerk to me. She took my Red Sox baseball cap off my head. She didn't do it. Somebody else did after school, thinking they were funny, and then everybody was passing around the hat. And I was getting very upset, and it was like I'm like in fourth grade maybe, and I didn't want to cry in front of everybody. I was very upset. And then this one girl had the hat, and I said, "Give me my hat back." And she's like, "No." And I said, "Give me my hat back." And she's like, "No." And I said, "Give me my hat back, or I'm gonna punch you in the face." And she said, "Punch me in the face." So I did. I punched her in the face. And I took my hat back. This is the 70s. This is back when kids were allowed to fight other kids. It's a horrible thing. If I met her today, I would apologize. She probably doesn't even remember it, but it was an awful thing. As a kid, punching a girl in the face, that was not cool. And my parents were pissed when I went home and told them what had happened. And then everybody else started basically following me home and being jerks to me. And then that was probably the start of me being bullied in school. Anyway, she's in there. She's in a couple of stories. Her name is mentioned in several stories that horrible things happened to her because it was traumatic. For me, it was more than 45 years ago, and I can still remember the feeling from back then. It was awful. It was literally awful because she was not going to give my hat back. And there was like 20 kids surrounding me that were all teasing and taunting me. And it was just really awful. I remember the girl who took the hat originally, she the next day, she actually came to my desk and apologized to me that she was sorry that it went that far and everything. And so I appreciated that. So she's also been in a couple stories. But she has, she had been killed in my stories, let's be honest, but not as brutal as the other one. So I will not give out their names here. Suffice to say, a lot of people I've met over the years have been in stories and have been wiped out. So chances are, if you've met me in person, you're gonna be in one of my stories, either as a minor character or another character. So an example is one of the ladies who works with my wife, first time I met her, she said, oh, my husband's coming. I said, okay, what's your, and she said, Rocco. And I said, how cool. When growing up, I grew up in New Jersey. So there was 2 or 3 guys, and their first names were Rocco. I'm like, that's cool. I haven't had a friend named Rocco. But then she's like, well, no, his actually his last name is Rocco. We call him Rocco, but that's his last name. I was very disappointed in that. But I did make him a bartender in the Down and Dirty series. Because it's still a cool name. I just thought that was like, okay, that one makes sense. I don't think he died in that. I think he just was a bartender. But so those are some of the characters, some of the different things that happen. So now I'm going to guess you're a writer. Either you're an actual writer or wannabe writer, whatever. When you are thinking of character names, are you using real people? Are you maybe taking the first name of this person and the last name of this person and putting them together? Are you thinking along those lines? Or are you just completely I'm just going to make up Bob Smith is this the name of this character and I'm not going to worry about it? What kind of process, or as I like to say, process, are you using to find those things out for you as a writer? So drop your comments. Let me know. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know if you have any other ideas for other videos. I have ideas, but I'm always looking for more ideas. Every Wednesday, every Sunday, I drop a brand new video here about writing and different things. So any ideas you have, I will do a video if I haven't done it already. Go through. I've done a couple, 3 dozen videos now, writing videos, maybe even more. I don't even know. So check them out. Hit the subscribe button. Let your family, your friends, let your enemies know about this channel. All right. I appreciate it. I appreciate you taking 20-something minutes of your time to watch this. I really do.